My father looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer his daughter. He said it like the words were acid burning through his tongue. And the worst part? He believed every lie that was fed to him. 6 months later, I placed a single folder on his desk, evidence that shattered everything he thought he knew. Now the same sister who destroyed my life is the one begging me for help. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be writing something like this, I would have laughed. I used to read Reddit posts about families stabbing each other in the back, siblings sabotaging each other, parents choosing favorites, and I'd think, wow, I'm lucky. Thank God that's not me. I actually felt secure, loved, respected. My career was rising. My family felt solid. And the person I admired most was my father, Frederick Donovan. He didn't just raise me. He raised a company. I'm 31 years old. Until recently, I was the vice president of operations at Donovan & Associates, my father's consulting firm. A business he built from a cramped garage with nothing but a few donated chairs, a coffee maker, and one client who took a chance on him. 30 years later, that tiny dream became a company with more than 200 employees across 3 states. To me, Donovan & Associates wasn't just a job. It was a living thing. I grew up with it. I watched my dad miss birthdays, skip family vacations, and sleep on office couches to make sure it survived. My mother, Beatrice, stood beside him through every failure, every success, every sleepless night. Together, they turned sweat and sacrifice into legacy. And I wanted to honor that. So when I joined the business 8 years ago, even though I had a shiny MBA and every reason to walk into a cushy role, I insisted on starting at the bottom. I answered phones. I filed paperwork. I brought coffee to meetings where I wasn't allowed to speak. I took notes in rooms where the deals being made could change someone's entire career. And I listened. That was my education. 5 years later, I became director of client services. By year 7, I earned the vice president title. Not handed. Earned. My father and I worked like a perfect machine. He shaped the vision, I made it happen. Those were the best years of my life. But every story has a turning point. Mine arrived wearing perfect makeup, carrying a 7-year-old, and pretending to smile. My older sister, Francesca. She's 34. Married to a man named Damien, mother to a sweet kid named Adrian. On the outside, she looks like the suburban dream, 2-car garage, cute kid, husband with a successful business. It was easy to think she had it all figured out. But appearances lie more convincingly than people do. Francesca always saw my accomplishments as weapons aimed at her. I was the straight-A student, the scholarship kid, the one who walked across the graduation stage to cheers while she stumbled through community college and never went back. My parents supported us equally, I have no doubt about that. But to Francesca, every time they were proud of me, they were ashamed of her. She turned my success into her failure, in her own mind, and resentment took root early, like weeds choking everything good. It got worse when she tried working at the company before me. She quit after 6 months, calling it toxic. Later, I learned she'd been caught manipulating expense reports. My father could have fired her publicly, but he let her resign quietly to save her dignity. She never forgave him. Or me. What I didn't realize was that while I was building trust and responsibility, she was building something else. Access. She'd stop by the office with cookies for old friends. Chat with reception. Laugh with security guards. She acted like a friendly former employee keeping ties warm. But in hindsight, she was planting seeds. Making sure nobody questioned her presence later, when she needed it. While I worked myself to the bone building operations, Francesca was building connections, quietly, deliberately. Last fall, things changed. Suddenly, Francesca was everywhere. Calling my parents daily. Dropping by the house multiple times a week with Adrian. Showing up unannounced with a bottle of wine, just to talk. My mother was over the moon. She'd always wanted the two of us to be close. I wanted to believe it was real. That my sister had grown up. That maybe she decided to stop competing with me. What I didn't know was that her perfect life was falling apart. Damien's business was crumbling under lawsuits, debt, and fraud allegations he hid from her. Their house was on the brink of foreclosure. They weren't just struggling, they were desperate. Instead of asking for help, Francesca found another angle. She didn't need success if she could take mine. She planned to expose me as a traitor, take my place as the daughter who saved the company, and leverage that loyalty into a position she could live off. Meanwhile, she and Damien would sell stolen corporate data to stay afloat. I had no idea any of this was happening. Not even a hint. Until one morning in early November, when my assistant interrupted a financial meeting with the CFO. She looked pale, even shaky, as she whispered, "Your father needs to see you. Right now. He says it's urgent." The tone in her voice, it wasn't normal. It sounded like something terrible was already waiting for me on the other side of his office door. "Your dad needs to see you. Right now," my assistant said, and her voice had this flat, shaky edge to it that made my stomach drop. It wasn't just urgent. It was bad. By the time I reached his office, the door was already shut. That was my first warning sign. My father almost never closed his door completely when I was in the building. But there it was, solid wood, no sliver of light, no familiar, welcoming, "Come in," before I even knocked. I opened it and stepped inside. He was sitting behind his desk, hands folded, shoulders rigid. And the way he looked at me. I'd seen that expression before, but never directed at me. Disappointment, yes, but layered with something sharper, colder. Like he was trying not to be sick just from looking at me. "Sit down," he said. "No, sweetheart. No, kiddo." Just 2 clipped words, stripped of every ounce of warmth. My heart started pounding in my ears, but I Saturday, "Dad, what's going on?" He didn't answer at first. Just slid a manila folder across the desk like it was a piece of evidence in a trial. I flipped it open. Emails. Dozens of pages. All with my company address at the top. My eyes skimmed the first page, and my brain short-circuited. They looked like messages from me to one of our competitors. Naming our clients. Sharing internal projections. Pricing strategies. Confidential contract details. It even referenced real meetings I'd actually attended, real clients I'd personally handled. And then there was the last email. A request for a wire transfer of $50,000 to an offshore account in exchange for continued information. Explain this, my father said quietly. For a second, I literally forgot how to breathe. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. The room felt too small, like the air had been sucked out of it. Dad, I didn't write these. My voice sounded thin, far away. They're fake. Someone fabricated them. I would never. Francesca brought these to me this morning, he cut in. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. She found them on your work computer when she stopped by to surprise you with lunch. Everything inside me froze. Francesca. At my office. On my computer. My father kept talking, his gaze dropping to the emails. She was heartbroken. She didn't want to believe it. She kept insisting there had to be some explanation. But, he gestured toward the stack. There it is. In black and white. Dad, no. My voice cracked. You're not listening. I have never, ever, communicated with a competitor about privileged information. Those emails are forged. Someone either planted them on my computer or spoofed my address. He shook his head slowly, and I swear I could see it happen in his eyes, trust dissolving, like ink bleeding out of paper. Your sister has no reason to lie, he said, his tone hardening. She's done nothing but support you, even when your success came at a cost to her own. She came to me sobbing, hoping I'd tell her she was wrong. And you believed her, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Just like that? Without even talking to me first? The evidence speaks for itself. I stood up so fast my chair screeched against the floor. No, it doesn't. Evidence can be manufactured. Emails can be spoofed. Login logs can be manipulated. Francesca happening to discover everything neatly laid out on my computer? That's not a coincidence. That's a setup, and you know it. His chair scraped back as he stood too, and his face twisted into something I'd never seen aimed at me, pure outrage. How dare you, he snapped. How dare you accuse your sister of something like this? She has been trying to mend this family. She's been the only one making an effort. And now you're going to throw her under the bus to save yourself? I'm not throwing anyone under anything, I shot back, shaking. I'm telling you the truth. No, his voice rose, echoing off the glass walls. You're telling me lies. He pointed at the folder like it was a weapon. I built this company from nothing. I trusted you. I gave you every advantage, every opportunity to prove yourself. And this is how you repay me? Selling our secrets? Betraying your own family? I didn't do this. My throat burned, vision blurring. Dad, please. You know me. You know I would never. You're fired. The words landed like a fist to my chest. He didn't stop there. Clear out your desk and leave the building immediately. And as far as I'm concerned, his jaw clenched. You're no longer my daughter. For a moment, the world literally tilted. I grabbed the edge of his desk because my knees threatened to give out. This was the man who had held my hand when I crossed the street as a kid, who had hugged me after every exam result, who had proudly introduced me to clients as my daughter, the future of this company. Now he was looking at me like I was something foul that had wandered into his office. Dad, get out. There was nothing left to say. Nothing he was willing to hear anyway. I walked out. Security met me outside his office like they'd been waiting for the signal. They didn't touch me, but they didn't leave my side either, just followed me down the hallway, into the elevator, to my office. As I packed a cardboard box with a plant, a few framed photos, and the mug my mom had given me, they stood in the doorway, watching like I might steal a stapler. By the time they walked me through the lobby and into the parking garage, I felt like a criminal. A stranger in a building I'd practically grown up in. I drove home in a haze, barely registering traffic lights, city noise, any of it. My hands were shaking so badly on the steering wheel that I had to pull over once just to breathe. The next few weeks melted into one long, gray blur. My phone barely rang. When it did, it was never my father. My mother called once. Once. She was crying before I even said hello. I don't know what to believe, she whispered. I need time, sweetheart. I need time to understand. I tried to explain. Tried to tell her about the emails, the timing, Francesca being on my computer. She just cried harder and said, please, not now, before hanging up. My calls to my father went straight to voicemail. No return texts. No late night, let's talk about this, message. I might as well have fallen off the face of the earth. Francesca, meanwhile? She slid in exactly where I'd been standing. Not with my title, not officially. But suddenly she was helping out. Consulting here and there while they looked for my replacement, stepping into meetings I used to lead, sitting in my chair in conference rooms, supporting Dad through this tough transition. And somehow that temporary arrangement just kept going. I wanted to crawl into bed and never move again. Some days, that's exactly what I did. Every morning I woke up, for one blissful half-second I forgot. Then it all came crashing back, the office, the folder, his words. And even though I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, the shame clung to me like smoke. It's amazing how being accused can make you feel guilty, even when you're innocent. The loneliness was suffocating. Friends I'd known for years suddenly had full calendars. Sorry, super busy right now. Texts left on read. Coffee plans rescheduled, then quietly abandoned. People in our industry stopped replying to emails. The few who did were stiff, distant, like they were afraid my supposed bad ethics might be contagious. Word travels fast in consulting. Even faster when the story is juicy. Officially, my termination was confidential. Unofficially? The whisper network filled in the blanks. I'd been fired for ethical violations. For betraying the company. For selling proprietary information. By the time the rumors got back to me, I'd apparently taken down half the industry single-handedly. People who had toasted my promotions, who'd told me I was going places, now looked away if they saw me on the street. One former colleague literally crossed to the other side of the sidewalk to avoid walking past me. That one hurt more than I expected. I couldn't even clear my name publicly without risking legal trouble for violating confidentiality clauses. So the lies grew, and grew. My apartment turned into a strange mix of refuge and cell. I stopped cooking real meals. My fridge was a graveyard of leftovers and plastic containers from places that knew my order by heart. Cold coffee gathered on my desk while I sat staring at nothing. At night, sleep came in messy, broken pieces. I'd drift off, only to jolt awake to the echo of his words. You're no longer my daughter. You're no longer my daughter. You're no longer my daughter. One night, about 3 weeks after losing my job, I ended up standing barefoot on my balcony at 2 a.m. The city glowed below me, headlights streaming past, distant sirens, the faint hum of life continuing without me. Tears blurred the lights until they looked like watercolor smears. And for one terrifying, fleeting moment, a thought passed through my mind. It would be easier to just disappear. Let them all believe whatever they wanted. Stop fighting. Stop hurting. Just fade out of the story quietly. That thought scared me more than anything Francesca had done. Because that wasn't me. I wasn't someone who vanished. I wasn't someone who lay down and let other people write the ending. The next morning, with my hand still a little shaky, I picked up the phone and called a therapist. Dr. Elizabeth Winters had been recommended by a former colleague who'd gone through a nasty divorce. She had an opening that same week. When I walked into her office, I expected to feel weak. Defeated. Instead, it felt like stepping into a space where, for the first time in weeks, nobody had already decided who I was. Her office was warm and calm, bookshelves, a soft rug, a chair that you kind of melt into when you sit. I told her everything. The company. My father. The emails. Francesca. The humiliation. The loneliness. The balcony. You're experiencing acute trauma, she said during our second session, after listening more than anyone else had in months. Your sense of self was deeply tied to your family and your work. Overnight, both were stripped away by the people you trusted most. Of course you're grieving. You're mourning the loss of your identity and your relationships. It feels like a death, I admitted. Like I'm grieving someone. Except they're not dead. They just chose to stop loving me. Dr. Winters nodded. That's exactly what betrayal can feel like. But I want you to understand something important. Healing and fighting back are not mutually exclusive. You don't have to wait until you're okay to pursue the truth. Sometimes taking action, responsibly, carefully, is part of the healing. That idea lodged itself in my mind and refused to leave. I couldn't get my job back. I couldn't make my father unsay those words. But maybe, I could prove I wasn't the villain in this story. And if I did, then all of this wouldn't just be pain. It would be evidence. So I started digging. Not randomly. Not recklessly. Strategically. I hired a forensic IT consultant named Oscar Tanner. Former FBI cybercrime specialist, now working in the private sector. His firm handled digital forensics for civil litigation, things like hacked accounts, tampered data, electronic fraud. He also had established connections with law enforcement. In other words, if these emails were fake, he was the kind of person who could help prove it. We met at his office first. He was in his mid-40s, no nonsense, with the kind of calm, steady presence that made you feel like there was always an answer, you just hadn't found it yet. I handed him the printed emails. Is there any way, I asked, to prove these were fabricated? Or that someone else sent them using my credentials? He flipped through the pages, eyes moving quickly. Maybe, he said after a moment. It depends how good the person was. Truly sophisticated forgeries, if done with access to the right systems, can be very hard to distinguish from authentic messages. But hard doesn't mean impossible. I'll pay whatever it costs, I told him. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Take as long as you need. Working with Oscar gave my day's structure again. A reason to set an alarm. A reason to shower, get dressed, and leave the apartment. We started meeting every Tuesday morning at a little coffee shop near his building. He'd arrive with a laptop and a legal pad, I'd bring a folder of any new documents I'd found. We'd go over server logs, access reports, office procedures. He'd explain things, I'd ask questions. It felt almost like being back at work, collaborating, strategizing, moving toward a goal. Oscar never treated me like some fragile, broken victim. He treated me like a client and, in some ways, like a colleague. That professional respect was a lifeline. It reminded me that I was still competent, still sharp, still capable of more than just crying on my couch. Your sister made mistakes, he said one morning, stirring his coffee slowly. People always do. Smart criminals understand they have to erase every trace. Most people? They underestimate how much evidence they leave behind. He leaned back and began to list things off on his fingers. They think deleting a file means it's gone forever. It's not. They think logging out of a computer wipes the trail. It doesn't. They think using someone else's workstation or email means they're invisible. They aren't. I frowned. So you're saying even if she used my computer, there might still be a way to prove it wasn't me? He gave a small, grim smile. Almost nothing on a network truly disappears. There are server logs, backup systems, metadata in documents, security badge records, firewall logs, ISP routing data, sometimes even CCTV. If your sister did this, he tapped the stack of papers between us. She left fingerprints. Somewhere. He closed the folder with a soft thud. We just have to find them. The investigation swallowed me whole. If I wasn't sitting across from Oscar going over new findings, I was at home surrounded by color-coded spreadsheets, piecing together every moment of my life from the months before my firing. I recreated my schedule minute by minute, mapped every business trip, combed through archived emails, and tracked every time Francesca stepped foot in the building. It was tedious. It was exhausting. And every single line I filled in reminded me that someone I once loved had thrown a grenade into my life and walked away smiling. But at least the work gave me something to focus on other than the pain. My mother called every so often. Those conversations were like walking on cracked glass, every sentence careful, every silence sharp. She wanted to stay close to me without taking sides, which meant she couldn't say I was innocent, and she refused to say Francesca was guilty. I understood her logic. Intellectually, it made sense. Emotionally, her neutrality felt like another knife in my back. Your father misses you, she murmured during one call, about 2 months after my exile began. He doesn't say it, but I can tell. He sits in his study and stares at pictures from your graduation. I stared at the wall of my apartment, full of photos I couldn't bear to take down. If he misses me, I said quietly, he knows where to find me. He's stubborn, she replied. You know that. He truly believes he made the right decision. And admitting he was wrong would mean admitting he destroyed his own daughter's life based on lies. Yeah, I said, a bitter laugh slipping out, I imagine that would be uncomfortable for him. She sighed. I'm not excusing what he did. I'm just trying to explain. I don't need explanations, Mom. My voice cracked. I need someone in my family to believe me. She had no response. Because she couldn't give me what I needed. We ended the call with hollow promises to talk soon, knowing we probably wouldn't. 6 months crawled by. Oscar became my hidden weapon, one I never mentioned to family or friends, what few I had left. He wasn't just a consultant anymore. He was the only person helping me claw back a truth that had been buried under lies. Our attorney, Veronica Sanchez, sharp, relentless, stone-faced in negotiations, filed a preservation request that forced the company to turn over their email server logs. Oscar dug into them legally, trace by trace, like a surgeon dissecting a tumor. He also requested building entry records and visitor logs from the property management company. They were required to keep those on file for liability and insurance purposes. Every signature, every timestamp, every door badge swipe, it was all there, waiting to be used against someone. Meanwhile, I needed money. I had savings from my years at Donovan and Associates, but Oscar's work wasn't cheap, and the longer this dragged on, the thinner that financial cushion became. I refused to watch my bank account dwindle away like my reputation had. So I contacted Naomi. She was a former colleague who'd left to start her own consulting firm. Of course she'd heard the rumors, everyone had, but unlike most, she didn't avoid me. She actually asked what happened. The whole thing smells wrong, she said after I laid everything out. You're the most ethical person I've ever worked with. You once reported yourself for accidentally taking a company pen home. I laughed for the first time in weeks. I remember that. You told me I was unhinged. I still think you're unhinged, she replied dryly. But that's exactly why I know you never sold company secrets. Naomi offered me part-time consulting work under the radar. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a VP role. But it gave me purpose. And a paycheck. And it reminded me that I was still good at something despite what my father believed. As the months passed, Oscar finally began to uncover the cracks in my sister's story. Yes, the fraudulent emails had come from my computer. But Oscar noticed something the company had conveniently ignored. They were all sent during a 2-week period when I was traveling for work in Montana. I was hundreds of miles away. And the login logs? They showed access from an IP address that wasn't linked to me, my phone, my laptop, any hotel I stayed in, nothing. Then came the bombshell. Someone had installed remote access software on my work computer. The installation date? The exact day Francesca dropped by with lunch. I stared at Oscar across the table when he showed me the timestamp. How would she even get into my computer? I asked. It's password protected. Oscar slid a document toward me. According to the access logs, someone entered your password correctly on the first try. No failed attempts. I swallowed hard. My password was Mom's birthday and our childhood dog's name. Information Francesca had grown up with. I trusted my family, I whispered. I never imagined I'd need to protect myself from them. Someone created a backdoor, Oscar said. It allowed them to log in remotely, send emails, copy files. They didn't just frame you. They operated as you. My chest tightened. Can you prove it was Francesca? Oscar hesitated. The remote access came from an IP address registered to a residential provider. I can't pull the exact subscriber information without a court order, but I can narrow it down to a neighborhood. And the address range matches your sister's area. Not a smoking gun. Not yet. But enough to keep moving. Month 4 nearly broke me. We had clues, not certainty. Suspicion, not proof. A story, not evidence that would stand in court. I was running out of money. Naomi's work helped, but Oscar's fees kept piling up. My entire future felt like a coin teetering on its edge, one breath away from collapsing. One night, panic swallowed me whole, and I called Dr. Winters. What if we never prove it? I blurted. What if she gets away with everything? What if the truth is something only I ever know? Dr. Winters let the silence breathe before she spoke. If you never find the proof, she asked gently, would you still know, without a single doubt, that you are innocent? Yes, I whispered. Then that truth belongs to you. Your character doesn't depend on a judge, your father, or your sister acknowledging it. Your integrity is yours. That doesn't fix anything, I said, tears burning my eyes. No, she replied softly. But it keeps you from losing yourself while you fight. Those words didn't solve my case. But they rescued a part of me I'd nearly thrown away. 2 weeks later, Oscar called. His voice carried a new kind of energy, sharp, focused. We found something, he said. You need to come in. When I arrived, he had a folder on his desk thicker than the one my father had thrown at me 6 months before. But this time, it wasn't forged lies. It was truth. Oscar had traced the offshore account listed in the fake emails. The $50,000 wasn't fictional. It had actually been wired. Someone had taken real money for stolen data, and they'd used my name to do it. But then came their fatal mistake. The offshore account required a company to serve as a nominee for the account holder. That company used an email domain registered to another shell corporation in Delaware, Pinehurst Holdings LLC. Delaware requires incorporation records to be public. And the incorporator listed on Pinehurst Holdings? Damian Holloway. My brother-in-law. They hadn't just framed me. They'd committed the crime themselves. Damian had literally signed his name on the formation documents of the shell company laundering the bribe money. I sat in Oscar's office in stunned silence, my mind spinning. How did they think they would get away with this? I finally whispered. Oscar leaned back, steepling his fingers. They bet on one thing, he said. That the investigation would stop with you. Your father was never meant to look deeper. Francesca knew exactly how he'd react. She weaponized his need to believe she'd finally become the good daughter. She used his guilt. His blind spot. He paused. The entire plan only worked if he refused to question her. The cruelty hit me like a fresh blow. Francesca didn't just accuse me. She turned my father into the weapon. She used his hope for her, to destroy me. She didn't just steal my reputation. She used love as the knife. What happens now? I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. Oscar didn't answer right away. Instead, he pushed the thick folder across the desk. Pages of evidence. Months of my life spent chasing the truth. Every lie laid bare. You decide what to do with it, he said. You can take this to law enforcement and let the authorities pursue charges. You can file civil lawsuits against your sister and her husband. You can bring it to your father and force him to face the consequences inside the company. He paused, steady eyes meeting mine. Or, he added softly, you can do all three. For a moment, the room felt unbearably still. Like even the air was waiting for my answer. I brought everything to Veronica, my attorney. She flipped through the files, page after page, her expression tightening into something predatory. When she finally set the folder down, she leaned back and let out a low, impressed whistle. This is solid, she said. Very solid. We can take this to the police, or we can go directly to your father first. She looked me in the eye, sharp, focused, waiting. What do you want to do? I'd imagined this moment for half a year. I'd played it over in my mind during sleepless nights, on the balcony at 2 a.m., in therapy, in Oscar's office, at Naomi's kitchen table. I'd fantasized about the shock on my father's face when he learned the truth. About Francesca being handcuffed while I walked back into the company that should have been my legacy. I pictured my triumphant return, applause, vindication, my father begging for forgiveness. But reality is quieter than fantasy. Messier, too. I want to confront them together, I said at last. My father needs to hear it from me. And Francesca needs to be sitting right there when he does. Veronica studied my face for a moment. She wasn't looking for doubt. She was checking for resolve. When she found it, she nodded. All right, but it's risky. If your sister realizes you have evidence, she might run. Or destroy anything left that could implicate her. She won't run, I said, and a cold certainty settled in my chest. She's too arrogant. She thinks she won. And that was exactly why I would. I made the call to my mother. The sound of her voice when she picked up, hopeful, trembling, excited, hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for. Sweetheart, I'm so glad you called. You have no idea how much your father has missed you. He's been miserable. Even if he'll never admit it. I'm sure he has, I replied evenly, keeping my voice steady, controlled. Listen, I'm hoping we can do a family dinner. All of us. There are some things I need to say. Oh, that's wonderful, she practically gasped. Yes, of course. I'll make dinner. Your father will be thrilled. He's been waiting for this. I know he has. Good, I said. And, can you make sure Francesca and Damian are there too? It's important. There wasn't even a hint of suspicion in her voice. No hesitation. Of course, sweetheart. The whole family, together again. It'll be just like old times. Just like old times. Except this time, I wasn't walking into that house as the daughter who had everything to lose. I was walking in with the truth. And the truth was a blade sharp enough to cut every lie wide open. My mother had always believed that time could heal anything, as if love were a needle and thread strong enough to sew every wound shut. She clung to that idea like faith, like oxygen. That's why she agreed so easily when I asked for a family dinner. She thought she was helping us reconcile. She had no idea she was setting the stage for a reckoning. The week before that dinner stretched out like an entire year. I practiced my words in front of the mirror. Out loud. Softly. Angrily. Calmly. I imagined every possible scenario, Francesca denying everything, Damien feigning ignorance, my father exploding or retreating into silence. I imagined breaking down, and I forced myself to practice not breaking down. I made multiple backups of the evidence, stored in 3 separate places, my apartment, a safety deposit box, and in a locked folder at Veronica's office. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was survival instinct. Naomi decided I needed what she called a vindication outfit. She dragged me into a boutique and handed me a charcoal blazer and matching slacks, sharp lines, tailored fit, the kind of outfit you'd wear to fire an entire board of directors and then calmly walk out for lunch. "You're going to walk in there as the CEO you should have been this whole time," she said, her eyes fierce. "Let them see exactly what they lost." I barely slept the night before. Every fear crawled into my mind and settled there like lead. What if Francesca denied everything? What if my father refused to believe me? What if they turned it all around again? What if I crumbled in the middle of the room? By 4 p.m. Saturday, I was standing at my parents' front door for the first time in half a year. The garden looked exactly the same, my mother's roses wrapped around the trellis, the stone pathway my father laid 20 years ago still winding toward the porch. Familiar. Steady. Like nothing had changed. Except everything had. I took 3 slow breaths and rang the bell. Francesca and Damien were already there. My sister greeted me with a bright, airy smile, her arm tucked around her husband's like they were posing for a Christmas card. "Little sister," she chimed, stepping toward me. "It's so good to see you. We've missed you so much." The audacity almost knocked the words out of my mouth. She believed the game was over. That she'd won. She looked at me like someone looking at a ghost they'd buried themselves. My father stood near the fireplace with a drink, watching me with an expression I couldn't interpret, a mask that revealed nothing and hid everything. My mother rushed to me, tears already flowing, hugging me tightly. I let her hold me for a moment, then gently stepped away. "Can we sit down?" I asked. "There's something I need to share with all of you." We assembled in the living room like a family locked in a courtroom. My parents on one couch. Francesca and Damien on the other. I stood in the middle, not a defendant, but the prosecutor. I held the folder like a gavel. 6 months ago, I began, I was fired from the company I gave 8 years of my life to. I was accused of selling confidential information to our competitors and betraying everything our family spent decades building. My father's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "I begged you to believe me," I continued, my voice shaking just slightly. "And you looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer your daughter." The air in the room shifted. Even my mother stopped breathing for a second. But I pressed on. "I've spent every day since then trying to understand why you believed such a thing. How you could throw away 31 years of love based on emails anyone could have forged." "The evidence was clear," my father said stiffly. "No," I replied, laying the first document on the coffee table. "The evidence was fabricated." One by one, I spread the papers out like cards in a magician's act, except my trick was revealing the truth, not hiding it. This is a forensic analysis of the email server logs. It proves the emails were sent from my computer using remote access software installed on October 15th. I was in Montana that day. I wasn't anywhere near this building. Francesca's smile had frozen, still curved, but brittle as glass. "Do you know who visited the office on October 15th to bring me lunch, even though I wasn't there?" I laid another document down. "This is a visitor log from building security. Every visitor signs in. Francesca signed in at 2:47 p.m. and out at 3:23 p.m. Here's the badge record showing she accessed the 4th floor, where my office is. Plenty of time to install remote access." Francesca scoffed weakly. "This is ridiculous. You're twisting things to blame me for your mistakes." "Am I?" I slid the bank records across the table. "Here's a wire transfer of $50,000 paid to an offshore account for confidential data. The account belongs to a shell corporation, Pinehurst Holdings LLC. I looked at Damien. "And the incorporator on that company's records is you, Damien." He went pale. My mother pressed her hand against her mouth like she might be sick. My father stared down at the documents, his eyes moving as though they were physically heavy. "Francesca and Damien committed corporate espionage," I said, my voice now steady, the cold certainty finally anchoring me. "They stole from our company. They sold the information. And they used me as the scapegoat." "That's a lie." Francesca shrieked, jumping up. "She forged this. She's always been jealous of me. Always." "Sit down, Francesca," my father said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She sat. He read every page. Slowly. Carefully. Like a man witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Then, in a quiet voice, almost speaking to himself, he said. "The IP addresses match. The timeline, the shell company." He looked at Damien. "Did you sell our client data to Silverline Technology?" Damien's silence was an admission. His eyes begged. His lips trembled. But he said nothing. Francesca broke first. But not with remorse. With rage. "You don't understand," she screamed. "We were drowning. The house, the cars, Adrian's school, everything was falling apart. Damien's business collapsed and we had nothing left." "So you stole from us?" my mother whispered, sounding like someone who'd been stabbed. "You framed your sister and stole from your father?" "I was supposed to inherit the company." Francesca screamed, her face twisted. "I was the firstborn. It was meant for me. But she showed up with her perfect grades and her perfect MBA and suddenly she was daddy's star." "You deserve nothing," I said, my voice low. "You quit. You walked away. I earned every step I took." Francesca laughed bitterly. "Oh please. You think you earned it? All those years playing the humble worker bee while dad smiled and groomed you to replace him? I never had a chance. You could have, my father said, eyes hollow. But you stole from us. And when that wasn't enough, you tried to destroy your sister too. Francesca looked at him with pure hatred. I did what I had to do to survive. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then my father stood, slowly, painfully, and with a voice that seemed scraped raw from the inside, said, I'm calling the authorities tonight. Whatever happens next is out of my hands. Francesca's face drained of color. Dad, please, she began. But this time, he didn't shout. He didn't argue. He simply turned away. And that, more than anything, was the moment my sister realized the game was over. Don't. My father didn't shout this time. He didn't tremble or choke on the words. His voice was steady, firm in a way I hadn't heard since before the fallout began. You've said enough, he told Francesca. More than enough. And just like that, the house went quiet. Not the shocked silence from earlier, this was something heavier. Final. The kind of silence that comes when a veil has been ripped away and everyone finally sees the truth for what it is. The weeks that followed were a slow unraveling of the damage my sister had done. Damien folded first. My brother-in-law practically raced to confess once he realized Oscar's report left him no room to breathe, let alone lie. He admitted everything: wire fraud, identity theft, selling proprietary information. His cooperation with federal investigators earned him a lighter sentence, but prison still waited for him like a steel-barred finish line. Francesca didn't break so easily. Her lawyer tried to cast her as a desperate mother just trying to protect her family's future. But premeditation doesn't look like desperation. It looks like installing remote access software 4 months before you destroy someone's life. It looks like hiding shell companies and offshore accounts. Her charges were severe. Her picture-perfect life in the suburbs? The fancy SUV? The private school for her son? All headed for liquidation and foreclosure. Adrian, my 7-year-old nephew, became the true collateral damage. None of this was his fault. My mother stepped in to care for him, and I found myself caring more deeply for his well-being than I expected. He didn't ask for parents who treated fraud like a business plan. Whatever happened to them, he needed stability. A chance to grow up without the shadow of their choices crushing him. A few weeks later, my father summoned the board, the employees, and the industry at large to make a public statement about my wrongful termination and full exoneration. He didn't stop there. He offered me the role of CEO, immediately, while he shifted into a semi-retired position as chairman emeritus. I accepted. But not without terms. The same office where he'd once fired me became the backdrop for a very different conversation. He sat behind the desk, eyes bloodshot, posture worn down by regret. I kept my voice controlled and unflinching. You believed her over me, I said. Without evidence. Without due diligence. Without even asking me to defend myself. You chose her word over 31 years of knowing me. He swallowed hard, the lines on his face deeper than I remembered. I know. And I have no excuse. I let guilt blind me. I always felt I failed her somehow. I thought if she came back to the company, back to us, I might finally make it right. At my expense, I said. You made amends by sacrificing me. And I will regret that for the rest of my life, he whispered. We sat in the quiet. Outside the window, the city moved on without us, unaware of how easily one lie can shatter a family. I'm not accepting this position because I forgive you, I said. I'm accepting it because this company matters. I gave it 8 years, and I refuse to let Francesca's betrayal take that from me too. Our relationship, though? That will take time. Years. Maybe it will never fully heal. My father nodded. Whatever time you need, I'll give it. Whatever you require, I'll support. Will you? I asked. Because 6 months ago, you didn't. He flinched, and he deserved to. I'm implementing new protocols, I continued. If accusations ever involve family, independent counsel reviews them. Any termination linked to digital evidence requires a forensic audit. And HR will be overseen by outside counsel. He bowed his head. Whatever you believe is best. It's not what I believe, I said. It's what I know. Trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild with apologies. It rebuilds with structure, accountability, proof. A month into my role as CEO, my mother came to me with a message from Francesca. She wants you to know she's sorry, my mother said quietly, awkwardly. She says she never meant for things to go so far. She thought once she had a role at the company, she could make things right. I let out a sharp laugh, but there was no humor left in it. She committed federal crimes and destroyed my life. How exactly was she planning to make things right from a stolen office chair? My mother had no answer. Just eyes heavy with grief for a daughter she'd never truly known. Soon the apologies shifted into begging. Her assets were frozen, legal bills mounting. She was losing her house. And through my mother, she pleaded, how can you let your nephew suffer? He needs stability. I considered it carefully. Then I sent my reply. Tell her I hope she finds peace with what she's done. Tell her I don't hate her, hatred would only poison my life. But she had every opportunity to ask us for help. She chose to destroy me instead. That decision was hers, not mine. And now she can live with it. I paused, making sure this part was crystal clear. Tell her I will support Adrian. I'll make sure he has education, medical care, a stable home with our parents if needed. But I will not pay her legal fees. I will not save her house. I will not rescue her from the consequences she engineered. My mother cried delivering the message. Not because she disagreed, but because she finally understood the depth of Francesca's resentment. A bitterness so old it had calcified into malice. Some bonds were never real to begin with. As for me, I rebuilt. I returned to work and rebuilt relationships with colleagues who trusted me even when my own father didn't. I rewrote company policies, implemented oversight systems, and protected the business from ever being manipulated by blood ties again. Every morning when I unlock my office door, I feel the weight of what almost happened. How close I came to losing everything, my career, my family, myself. But I didn't lose. Francesca tried to erase me, replace me, destroy me. She thought love was something to compete for, and success was something to steal if you couldn't earn it. She learned otherwise. I survived. I fought back. And the truth, when it finally surfaced, spoke louder than any lie she ever told. So to anyone reading this who's been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, document everything. Hire professionals. Trust the process even when your heart is breaking. Believe your truth even when no one else does. Truth is stubborn. It surfaces eventually. Even when your own father tells you you're no longer his child. Even when your name is dragged through the mud. Even when the world turns its back on you. Hold on. Because when the moment finally comes, when you can stand in a room and lay out the truth piece by piece, make sure everyone who doubted you sees it. That's not revenge. That's justice. And sometimes, justice is the sweetest victory of all.